So the question we're trying to solve today is, if y is equal to e to the power of 2x minus 1 over e to the power of 2x plus 1, prove that dy by dx, aka the derivative of y, is equal to 1 minus y squared. So just to rephrase that, essentially we're trying to find the derivative of this and prove that it is equal to 1 minus itself squared. So first, let's find the derivative of this. So dy by dx, aka the derivative of y, is equal to, so when we look at this, we know that we'll have to use the quotient rule. And just to recap, the quotient rule involves taking the derivative of the top times the bottom minus the top times the derivative of the bottom divided by the bottom squared. So let's do that. Let's draw a line. Okay. So first let's take the derivative of the top. So to take the derivative of the top, we have e to the power of 2x minus 1. And the derivative of e to the power of 2x is basically just itself. So e to the power of 2x times the power, the exponent, which is 2x. And the derivative of 2x is just 2. So we'll do times 2. And then we also have to take the derivative of negative 1. And since we know that negative 1 is a constant, its derivative will be 0. So we don't have to write that. So that's the derivative of the top. And now we need to times it by the bottom, which is e to the power of 2x plus 1. And then we have to subtract the top. So e to the power of 2x minus 1. Sorry, my handwriting is a bit messy. Times the derivative of the bottom. And so to figure that out, we need to take the derivative of e to the power of 2x, like what we did earlier. That'll be itself. So e to the power of 2x times the derivative of the exponent, which is 2x, which just turns into 2. And once again, we have a plus 1 that we also need to take the derivative of, and since it's also a constant, it just turns into 0, so we don't really have to write that. That's it for the numerator, and then for the denominator, we need the bottom times, or we need to square the bottom, so let's write that. So e to the power of 2x plus 1 squared. So now we have our first step, and now we can just turn these two into, let's write that differently. So these two would just turn into, bring the 2 in front, and we have 2 e to the power of 2x times e to the power of 2x plus 1 minus, and then we bring the 2 in front here also. That also make it 2 e to the power of 2x times e to the power of 2x minus 1. So yeah, we simplify the top a bit, and then we keep the bottom the same. Now, the next step, so from what we have here, we can tell that these are two different terms, and both of these terms, what do they have in common? Well, they both have the 2e to the power of 2x common, which means that this is something that we can factor out. So let's do that. Let's factor out our 2, sorry, my hand's blocking, 2e to the power of 2x, and then that would leave us with the remaining 2 terms left, which is e to the power of 2x plus 1, in brackets, minus, also in brackets, e to the power of 2x minus 1, yeah, in a square bracket. And then all of that over e to the power of 2x plus 1 squared. Great. Now that we have that, we can simplify whatever is in the black bracket by, first of all, multiplying in this negative into this bracket, because let's pretend here there's like a negative 1 here. And then, yeah, and then we will collect like terms. So the 2e to the power of 2x at the front stays as is, and then with what's inside the brackets, we can just turn this into e to the power of 2x plus 1. And then, so multiplying this negative into this bracket, we'll have negative e to the power of 2x, and then we'll have plus 1 because negative times a negative equals positive. So I have plus 1. And then once again, everything over e to the power of 2x plus 1 squared. Oh, forgot a bracket here. And now, as you can see in this bracket here, we have some like terms that we can collect and cancel out. So these two, e to the power of 2x minus e to the power of 2x, those two cancel out into 0. And then the 1 plus 1, that will turn into 2. So we'll be left with this. So we still have our 2e to the power of 2x, and then we have the 2 from the 1 plus 1, and then over the denominator, e to the power of 2x plus 1 squared. And this can, we can also simplify this by multiplying this 2 with the 2 in front of the e to the power of 2x. And that will give us our answer of 4 e to the power of 2x over e to the power of 2x plus 1 squared. And that is our derivative. So let's write that. So great. Now that we have our derivative, we're about halfway through. So looking back at the question again, we need to prove that this derivative that we found is equal to 1 minus y squared. So, and you know, since we know what y is, we can just plug y in and then solve for 1 minus y squared. So let's do that. So the derivative, it needs to equal to 1 minus y squared. And since we know what y is, let's sub that in. So we'll have 1 minus, sorry, the camera's a bit, okay. We will have e to the power of 2x minus 1 over e to the power of 2x plus 1, and then the whole thing squared. And with this, we can actually write it, I guess you can say separately. So we can write that as the top squared and the bottom squared, because that's essentially the same thing. So let's turn that into this, which can help us manipulate it as we go through the steps. So this will turn into e to the power of 2x minus 1 squared, and then same thing with the bottom, e to the power of 2x plus 1 squared. So yeah, these two are essentially the same thing, just written differently. And now, let's see, so we have 1 minus a fraction, and basically we want to get these two to have the same denominator, so we're going to multiply, so first let's do that, make them have the same denominator. So this will stay as is, e to the power of 2x minus 1 squared over e to the power of 2x plus 1 squared. And then we want them to have the same denominator, so we'll write e to the power of 2x plus 1 squared here also. And remember, when we're changing whole numbers into fractions, we want to do the same thing we did to the denominator to the numerator. So since we multiply the denominator by e to the power of 2x plus 1 squared here, we also need to multiply the top, which is 1, by e to the power of 2x plus 1 squared as well. So yeah, now our next step. So since we know that these two, or we can see that these two, they have the same denominator, we can turn this into one big fraction. So let's do that first. Let's draw one big line because we'll need quite a bit of space. E to the power of 2x plus 1 squared, because these two have the same denominator, we can just write it like that. And then now, so our next step would be to try to expand these two top terms, so we can make it easier for ourselves in the next steps. So yeah, to expand these two terms, we will do FOIL. And to make the foiling process easier, let's write this, this part out as one. Sorry, the x looks a bit wonky, but, and then we have, yeah, so I basically just split this into two of these, and then same thing with this one. Of course, you don't have to do this, but I'm just doing this so I can show all the steps and make it easier for myself to do the foiling. But yeah, we want to do FOIL with these two terms and FOIL with these two terms so we can expand this whole thing. And then we could collect like terms and then simplify, and then hopefully we should get to this. So yeah, let's do some foiling. So FOIL with the first two, first times inner times outer times last, yeah. Or sorry, first times, whatever, we know what FOIL is, but so e to the power of 2x times e to the power of 2x, that would give us e to the power of 4x, and then e to the power of 2x times 1, that gives us positive e to the power of 2x, and then same thing here, positive 1 times e to the power of 2x gives us e to the power of 2x again, and then 1 times 1, that gives us 1, or plus 1. Great, we have that, and now we need to do the same thing here, and it's important that for what we do here, we also need to keep it in brackets, because later on we'll be multiplying this negative into whatever we end up with in the brackets. So if we repeat the same step we did earlier with this, we'll get e to the power of 4x, because e to the power of 2x times e to the power of 2x equals that, and then negative 1 times e to the power of 2x, that'll give us negative e to the power of 2x, minus also e to the power minus e to the power of 2x, because these two times multiplied together gives us that, and negative 1 times negative 1 gives us positive 1, so plus 1. Don't forget to write the denominator. Okay, and now we can, well, first let's, I guess, collect some like terms here. So here and here. So with here, the two, this e to the power of 2x and e to the power of 2x, they're like terms, so we can add them together, and we'll be left with 2e to the power of 2x, and then whatever we had before. And then the minus, and then again, things still stay in the bracket until later. So in here, we also have a negative e to the power of 2x and another negative e to the power of 2x. And when we combine the two together, that'll give us negative 2e to the power of 2x. So okay, and so far, this is what we have. Oh, almost forgot to write the denominator. All right. So now let's multiply this negative into the bracket. So pretend, again, there's a negative 1 here, and we want to multiply all of that into each of the terms inside this bracket to help us simplify. So let's write out whatever we had before. Sorry, my hand's like covering. And then we have, so that will turn into negative e to the power of 4x. So, and then we have negative 1 times negative e to the power of 2x. That gives us positive e to the power of 2x. And then we have negative 1 times positive 1, which gives us negative 1. And then over our denominator, e to the power of 2x plus 1 squared. My handwriting is getting progressively messier, so please forgive me. And then, so now that we have all these terms, we can tell that some of these terms are similar. They're like terms. So we can collect them and then cancel them out, and then we should get our final answer. So we can tell that this e to the power of 4x and this negative e to the power of 4x, these two can cancel out. That will give us 0. And then this positive 1 and this negative 1, they're also like terms, and they can also cancel out. So that would give us 0. So now we're just left with 2e to the power of 2x plus 2e to the power of 2x. And that is just 4e to the power of 2x over e to the power of 2x plus 1 squared. And, oh, well, don't you look at that. That's what we had for our derivative. These are the same terms. So, since, let's see, our derivative was, where's my hand? Oh, 4 e to the power of 2x over e to the power of 2x plus 1 squared. So that was what we had here. That is equal to what we got here, which is also 4 e to the power of 2x over e to the power of 2x plus 1 squared. So yeah, we proved that. Since these are the same term, we proved that the derivative of y is equal to 1 minus y squared.